In this video, I'll be explaining and showing you how to preview your main points and how to use transitions to smooth out and connect the flow of your work. But first, a quick review of the pieces and parts needed to be included to make a good introduction that's less than 15% of the total time you're allotted for your delivery. First, you have to gain the attention of your audience, and I'm not just talking about saying hi or hello. Then comes the relevance statement that needs to tell your audience why they should listen to your speech before seamlessly stating a credibility statement that informs your audience of who you are and that you are, well, at least somewhat knowledgeable on the topic. After that comes your thesis statement that contains the main message of what you're about to tell your audience. And then comes the topic of this video, previewing your main points and how to add in and properly use transitions, just like this one as we get into this. The preview of your main points should be revealing and yet concise without being too wordy. It's used to provide your audience with a little more information of your main points that you clearly stated in your thesis statement. Think of the preview as a short ad, a teaser, or an appetizer for what you're about to say and serve to your audience to let them know a little bit of what they're about to hear. To make this work, just add one small piece of information from each main point. Now, that sounds simple, but when you have a lot of really good information, it can also be quite difficult when trying to figure out exactly what to say and what not to say. A common mistake so many of my past students made with previewing their main points was the tendency to add in too much information from the subpoints. The main reason that happened was usually because of an unfinished outline, or they decided to skip the classes that I talked about this very issue and didn't ask for help when I offered it later. The moral of the story is finish your outline, then get it critiqued, and then stick to your notes when delivering your presentation. Here's a good example of how creating a preview statement works for an informational speech. I'll state the thesis first, then the preview statement before we break it down to show you how to do this with your own topic. Here's the thesis statement. To make the best homemade pizza possible requires three main ingredients: the dough, the sauce, and the toppings. This is a tight thesis that works. Perhaps you noticed how I stated my overall main topic before stating very clearly and precisely the exact three main points of what I'm going to be talking about. If you need more coaching on how to easily write a thesis statement, check out the link in the description to my free Thinkific mini courses. Now, let's hear the preview statement that immediately follows the thesis statement with short and concise information for each of the three main points. Here it is. The dough that you can use to make the crust is the foundation and can arguably be the most important part of any pizza. The sauce adds flavor and can be either a little runny or chunky. And then there are the toppings that can meet any food lover's creative imagination and cravings. Let's break down each phrase to show you how this works so you can start doing this for your own topics. My first main point is the dough. The teaser to what I'm going to talk about is that the dough is the foundation and can arguably be the most important part of any pizza. I previewed my first subpoint that the dough, being the crust, is the foundation of a pizza, and then foreshadowed that my second subpoint is going to compare and contrast between different types of doughs that can be used. What I didn't use in this preview statement was whether the dough is thin, thick, stuffed, store-bought, or handmade from scratch. If I told my audience all of that in my preview, my introduction would go way over the recommended 15% time target of my entire presentation with way too much information. Don't overthink the simplicity of only including the main point and avoid mentioning the subpoints. Save those for the main body of your work. For my second main point, I stated that the sauce adds flavor and can be either a little runny or chunky. Here, I previewed that my first subpoint of my second main point will be about the flavor of the sauce. I was able to keep this short by not mentioning anything about what seasonings I would use or mention how mild or spicy the sauce can be by simply using the word flavor. I previewed my second subpoint by mentioning the consistency of different sauces by simply stating from runny to chunky style. To keep this short, I avoided stating whether the sauce is bought at the store, in a can, in a jar, or is crafted from scratch. I only used the overall ideas of each subpoint within that main point. And for my final main point that was, and then there are the toppings that can meet any food lover's creative imagination and cravings. I avoided discussing any specific toppings, whether it be cheese, meats, veggies, fruits, or some as yet to be revealed secret topping. Now, you might not have caught it, but here's an interesting issue with how I stated that last preview phrase. Wasn't I supposed to say both of my subpoints? I did, but it was very subtle on how I included creative imagination and cravings to make the statement more flavorful and hopefully more appealing to my audience, instead of stating specific foods, what some might like or not like to eat. Overall, the full preview statement that I created for this video was short and to the point and included all of my specific main points and created, pardon the pun, information hunger and curiosity in what's going to be talked about in the body of my speech. The key takeaway to remember when you're designing your preview statement in the introduction of your presentation is to only include your main points and avoid the urge to include the subpoints. This is still the introduction, and it needs to be quick and efficient to not waste time so you can transition into the body of your speech where the bulk of your creation is revealed. Speaking of transitions, I would truly appreciate it if you could take a quick 2 seconds to smash that thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. That lets me know that the information I'm providing you is worth your valuable time, and it tells the YouTube algorithm that what I provide is worth sharing with others too. Thanks, and cue the transition. To help prevent your audience from feeling like they're being jerked from point to point to point, and having them thinking that they lost focus on your message as they suddenly realize that you moved on to the next point, you need to use transitions. Transitions are the connections between sentences and thoughts and ideas. Transitions are needed and are used to effortlessly take your audience down a smooth path through the delivery of your presentation, instead of abruptly stopping and starting each new point. The simplest of transitions can be short statements, such as, let's start off by discussing my first main point. This brings me to my next point. Or, moving on to the next point. Therefore, this final point will make more sense, in that I highly recommend that you spend a little more time on developing transitions between points and ideas and practice them, as I'll show you how to do in the video linked in the description on how to prepare for your delivery. Download the free speech outline template from my Thinkific free stuff module that's linked in the description. You'll see that the transitions are an essential part of the process of developing a strong outline for a good speech, presentation, or video. Start thinking about transitions as the glue that binds your work together in a seamless, fluid body of work, especially when it comes to concluding your speech. Speaking of transitions and conclusions, in this next video, I'll show you how to wrap up your speech with a solid conclusion that includes how to review your main points, how to make a final closing statement, and most important of all, how to come up with a memorable clincher. Remember that my goal is that your success in school, work, and life beyond is the goal. I'll see you online soon.